This might be our last. Hope we're being recorded. This meeting might be our last Zoom, I hope, maybe. To get my cues from the township board and see what they want to do, but we'll go from there. But thank you all for bearing with us. I will do a lot of pausing just to allow folks to use the technology to speak up. We will have a couple different items on the agenda. I don't think we have any public hearings. We've gone through some public hearings, but we just have some new items to discuss. Members present, we have Tom, or we don't have Tom, and we don't have Sandy, I don't think, because both
Tom's
of
coming
those.
in right now.
Oh, Tom's coming in. All right. He didn't know whether he could make it. But I know that Sandy is not going to be with us because she's in a car, I think, driving back from somewhere. So we'll say we have Tom, we have Dawn, we have Steve, we have Leah, we have myself, and we have Mike. That's our roll call. Accept the agenda. So we have an agenda before us that one that was emailed to us. The one change I do want to make is that since we only have one item in new business and it's a update item, it's not an action item from the St. Louis Center, might as well not have them wait around. So I'm going to flip new business before unfinished business and hopefully get through it very quickly. Then we can get into our unfinished business items. So we'll flip that up above unfinished business. Other than that, no changes. So if that sounds all right to Planning Commission members, can I get a motion to accept the agenda as I amended it?
So move.
Moved by Tom, seconded by Steve. We'll do a quick roll call. Tom?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
Oh, there we go, Leah. Chair votes yes. Mike?
Yes, sir.
Unanimous. Agenda is accepted. All right, one more business item. We have the minutes from April 22nd presented by Dawn and emailed to us. I wasn't at that meeting, but so I'll leave it up to anyone else who, do you have any comments, changes? Otherwise, we'll do a motion to accept. Dawn, anything on them you need to change?
Yes, just one thing on page 4, Dave, on bullet point number 3, we talk about the next phases and that a buster pump might be required. That should be booster. I'll make that change.
All right.
A booster pump.
Yeah, we don't want a buster pump.
Well, later on, someone might question what on earth a buster pump is.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's an easy fix. I'll do that.
All right. Any other comments, changes? Hearing none, I need a motion to, I will make a motion to approve the minutes from April 22nd. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Steve. We'll do a quick roll call. Tom?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Mike?
Yes.
We have unanimous acceptance of the minutes. Moving right along, we do have a public comment period. We're going to start out with a quick little presentation from Adam over at Robin Hills, who wants to update us on some things that they're modifying and doing over there, and some of the agricultural things that they're doing this year. So I'm going to turn it over to Adam. We're going to kind of try to keep this around 10 minutes, Adam, and then if anyone else has anything they want to talk about for items not on the agenda, certainly we can do that. So let's turn it over to Adam.
Okay.
With me, Adam?
Yeah, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, so I guess for those of you who don't know me, my name's Adam Kofsky. I'm the managing director over at Robin Hills Farm. We're located on North M52, just before the Working Roundabout. I've been involved with this project since 2016. I'm a big believer in its agricultural mission. I'm involved in the local food community. My wife Brogan runs Agricole Farm Stop in downtown Chelsea. It's a year-round farmers market and cafe. We're both active members in the community. Some of you might remember me from last year when I came around to the Planning Commission. It was in person that time, and it was to announce that the farm was opening back up again after a brief period of being closed. I'm here today because it's been 1 year since we reopened, and I just want to reintroduce myself and kind of give you guys an update on the things that have been going on since we reopened. Because we reopened at a real weird time. It was March of 2020. So I'm just going to, once I talk about that, I'm going to provide some context for the proposed renovation to the farm's welcome building. The farm's welcome building it's the farm's main facility. It's got the commercial kitchen, it's got a dining room space, it's got a retail space, and it's got a classroom where we host a lot of educational classes. So I'm going to do a screen share, and I'm just going to show you guys a couple slides now to illustrate the farm's previous activities, and then I'll talk about what we've been doing in 2020, and then I'll discuss how the proposed renovation supports and enhances that mission. So give me a second here to just figure out how to screen share with you guys. And I'm going to do that right now. Host disabled participant screen share.
Yeah, I gotta figure out how to let you screen share.
Okay.
Like,
Um,
I got it here. Hang on.
You got it,
There we
Dave?
go.
Okay, thank you.
You should be able to do it now.
Okay, let me go ahead and try here. So all right, can everybody see the start of the slideshow here?
Yes,
You're on.
Okay, awesome, great.
Yep.
So let me just go full screen mode. Okay. So on the first slide, it's just an overview of some of the farm's previous initiatives. This just gives you an idea of what our mission is and how we operate. So just starting on the top left, we do a CSA program. For those who don't know what that is, it's just a membership-based model for purchasing local produce. So members who pay in get a box each week of vegetables to take home. We've raised livestock on the farm. We've done a lot of work planting Michigan native wildflowers and prairie grasses, controlling invasive plants like autumn olive. We have also done a lot to maintain habitat for birds, reptiles, amphibians, that kind of thing. We've done, youth day camps and all sorts of different educational initiatives. So that's just an overview. We've also worked with a handful of nonprofits and other educational organizations. This is just a couple of them. This is just an example. The Leslie Science and Nature Center, the Hands-On Museum, the Michigan Avian Experience. This list it's since expanded a bit. We now work with, for example, 5 Healthy Towns and Chelsea School District. We've got a field trip coming up in June, about 50 8th graders. So wish me luck with that. The next slide here is just an overview of some of our previous community events that we've done on the farm. We're trying to become a destination farm for education and recreation. So these are some of the things that we've done to pursue that mission. The nature trail runs, the Dragon Boat Festival was a great family-oriented event. People got to come in, learn how to build a boat. They actually built their own boats and raced them around the pond. Ice Festival, that was pretty much an excuse to be outside during the wintertime and, just try to take advantage of the daylight. So we brought the U of M ice carving team out, did some great ice sculptures, another community event. This next slide, this is actually a real shot of our welcome building. So this actually shows, the top left is our dining room area. So we ran a farm to table restaurant out of this dining room here, hosted brunches for the community. On the bottom right, you can see the dining room is way in the background. In the foreground is our retail space. And then just to the right, you see the little service desk there up against the window. So that was how we were operating. And then in 2018, we ran into some problems. We were just trying to do too many things at once. So we closed, we restructured the business to be more viable moving forward. Despite being closed, we were still growing on the property. Thanks to our partner, Hay Creek Heritage Farms, we still kept the property under a state of cultivation. And so the numbers you see are from 2019 in terms of harvest amounts, 19,000 pounds harvested, hundreds of different heirloom varieties of vegetables. So even though we weren't having people over, we were still doing a lot in terms of agriculture. We've got plans to bring some livestock in here. So I'm working with Nate right now to expand an area in our pasture. So that involves putting some fence in the ground, which if you guys have seen the cost of lumber right now, it's quite a project. It's turned into quite a project. So the sheep and goats you see, these aren't really your tradition, or these aren't really your conventional animals. These are, heritage breed livestock is something that Nate likes to focus on. So they're these old bloodlines of sheep. And so just trying to illustrate our commitment here to, traditional agriculture. In 2020, we did hold some classes, although we were restricted a bit on what we could do in terms of gatherings, but, we did some classes. We tried to focus especially on health and wellness for obvious reasons, but, we did outdoor fitness classes in our amphitheater. We did paddleboard yoga on our ponds, partnered with all sorts of different organizations to be able to put that on. This is just an example down at the bottom. In this next slide, it just talks about the kitchen, our events, our marketplace. So our kitchen, we're not doing farm to table right now. So I'm using the kitchen to try to support local food entrepreneurs. So we're working with, they're called Smoky Michigan. It's a father-daughter duo right now. And so they came out of the MSU Business Incubator. We got in contact with them, and now they rent kitchen space out of our commercial kitchen to make their barbecue sauces. So we hope to feature that at our farm. And they also do some really nice spice mixes too and rubs. We're still doing the CSA with the help of Nate. So there's a pickup every Thursday at the farm for people to come and grab their boxes. Most of our events got sidelined or pushed back, so we haven't done a whole lot of that. We did do a Halloween event in October, did a hayride for the kids, and that was really well received by the community. So we're thankful to be open for that. So just in conclusion about what we've been up to is, we're still agriculturally driven. We're still doing educational classes and workshops. We're really thankful to have Sylvan Township on our side and as our partner. And so now I'm just going to touch real briefly on the proposed renovation for this welcome building. So this drawing that you see in front of you, it's got some circles on it. So I just want to bring your attention real quick to the red circles. The red circles are the current service areas for taking transactions from customers for food and beverage. So the one on the right is for the food. The one on the left, that is the service area for our retail space, which is pretty much between the green circle and that red circle. So that's where we do most of our transactions. Now, the property is licensed by the MLCC to serve alcoholic beverages. As part of our special use permit granted to us, we're licensed to serve liquor-based cocktails. And so we haven't really been doing that because if you're going to be serving cocktails, there's some things that come with it. At a minimum, you need ice bins, you need hand sinks, you need 3-compartment sinks, in order to be able to take a cocktail and shake it, have somewhere to dump the garnishes when you're all done. So as we're starting to do these things, we have to add equipment to this service area. And so if you look at it, it's just not big enough as is to be able to accommodate that new equipment. So what we're proposing is an expanded service area in this green circle. And we're going to demolish that smaller service area and open that area up to be just a bit more, I guess, welcoming too, given that it is the welcome building. And so these are I think you have these drawings, you guys. So great. So you do have these. So this is just the plan view for the service area. And it's nothing you've never seen before. I mean, it's got coolers, it's got sinks, it's got waste bins, it's got, ice bins. So on the bottom right of this drawing is the existing bar. So if you look down there, I mean, that's enough room for, 2 people to basically stand shoulder to shoulder. And it does not leave a lot of room for the equipment necessary to be able to service our customers effectively or efficiently. So all we're proposing to do is to demolish that smaller area and build this larger area with enough space and equipment to, be able to do our jobs here. This is the elevation view. So again, it just shows you some storage space, some shelves, coolers, sinks, etc. So that's what we're trying to bring to the table. We'd like to, you know, have your support in doing this. And I just wanted to come to you to give you the update on what that is. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I think that was right around 10 minutes anyway. So let me know if you guys have any questions. You know, I'm happy to talk more, to follow up with you afterwards.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. That was helpful. I know that a lot going on out there, and it's helpful for the planning commission. You know, when we originally did this project, you know, there was going to be so many different things happening at the farm that we had sort of dates set up when you all would come in and get your events approved and so forth. Now, obviously, over the past year, things have been so turmoiled, but that's why I wanted you to come in and present. And then I know Carol was taking a look at this renovation because you've got to get some county permits for it and then some zoning compliance. And so that's where all that stemmed from. You know, not a lot of questions from my end. I'll open it up to different planning commission members. I guess the one question is, you know, as you make this change in your welcome building, you know, just ensuring that this supports your mission, right? That basically what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to serve more customers in a welcome building setting to support your ag activities. I mean, that's what it really comes down to for us, is that's what we want to continue, is the great ag activities that are happening and the educational activities. I'm glad to see, you know, maybe as COVID slows, we can get classes back going, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we definitely want to do that. And, you know, we're using the renovation to further our mission, to showcase a lot of these products. You know, yeah, we're going to be serving alcoholic beverages, but even the type and the product that we serve, like, you know, we carry Ugly Dog products, which is a local distillery. Even Smoky, Michigan, who's renting our kitchen, they make a tequila salt mix. So it's just like another way for us to showcase local people, local businesses, and agricultural activities. So, I mean, we're definitely committed to that and have been from the start.
Excellent. Members, do you have any questions for Adam? He's just coming in to present today, and we'll work with Carol to see whether there's anything we need to do from an action point of view as you move forward. But any questions anyone has?
Dave, I do. I think, Adam, you said that we got copies of the overview, especially the one with the circles on it that show what is now and where you're going to go.
Yep.
I did not get that. So can it be sent out to us again so that we have that to look at?
Yeah, let me make a note of that so I can send that to you after this meeting here.
In fact, if you could send the whole presentation, that would be helpful if it's
sure.
possible.
Yeah,
just
that's
send
no
it,
problem.
just send it to Carol and she'll get it to us.
Okay, that sounds
That
good.
would be fine. I do wonder, though, if I appreciate what you have said and what Dave has articulated as well. The moving forward with this, it does feel a little more like a much more commercial endeavor than just supporting the activities that you have. I mean, it looks like a full-size bar going on there. And I just wonder if, well, I have a little bit of concern about that. The cafe was supposed to be a complimentary activity, and now it's going to be much more of a full service type of facility. I'm going to repeat what Dave said, making sure that we keep this as an ag tourism business and focus on those important things that you mentioned, the education and the activity and the community activities and endeavor and initiatives going together, and not make this more of a commercial restaurant dinner place, because that's not what it was ever intended to be, as you said yourself. So I just want to make sure that we're not getting a little too far ahead of ourselves here. A lot has gone on in Robin Hills, and you've made an awful lot of progress over these years, but some pieces it just feels like could use a little more attention, because sometimes I think we get a few steps ahead of where we perhaps ought to be. Those are my comments.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. I mean, everything we're doing is to, you know, further our mission. And, you know, I'll be honest, it's a 129 acre property. It does take a lot to maintain. You know, I mentioned some of the things that we're doing. We're adding more fence. We're improving our growing area, our livestock area, and all these things. You know, they cost money to do these things. And It's not the case that we can, hold a fundraiser or, get donations or anything. So the farm does have to support itself, and, we're still committed to the mission, but we have to lay it out in a way that makes sense, that makes business sense without losing sight of the original intent and the scope of the project. You're absolutely right.
Carol, can you, if you're on, can you update us on, will the planning commission need to take action on this, or is it something that at some point we need to do? Or did I mute you? Are you muted? She's probably muted.
I know she's on, Dave.
Yeah, usually she's on by phone.
That's what she is tonight.
Okay. She is this number or this number? There's two.
Dave, I have a question while you're waiting for Carol.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Adam, does your liquor license with the state of Michigan, does it allow dancing?
Does it allow we have a dance permit, that is correct.
Okay. So you have and
Are
this
you-
will allow you to.
Are you a dancer?
No, what I'm wondering is this going to morph into more of a, back to some of Don's thoughts, is this starting to morph into more of a commercial nightclub operation with farming as a side business?
I would say not. I don't have any interest in starting a farm club. We're not doing that. No, we're just trying to serve drinks in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, but theoretically, your license does allow you to have dancing, correct?
Yes, that's right. But
Yeah, and I think part of the original on that, Mike, was that they were supposed to have that event facility, and then they've repurposed some areas for future.
No, I understand. I just wasn't sure about the license and where this is heading, right? So
Yeah, totally. Carol, I saw you
Okay.
come off mute. You ready?
Yep. All right. So this is Carol, and I know Attorney Rob Dahl is on, and he might be able to provide some insight to this. One of my concerns is, again, was the original mission and intent to be focusing more on agriculture. And when the board actually approved the liquor license for the property, and I know that changed, there was a little hesitancy, and it changed the dynamics of what was going on there. I don't know if this has to go back to the Planning Commission for a review, or is this just a straight up, zoning compliance permit? With the fact that you're increasing capacity and the number of people, I don't recall in reading through that memorialization that it was limited to a specific number of people. But I don't know if Rob's available for any comments on this. I could sure appreciate that guidance.
Sure. I would just need to know a little bit more about what was originally approved. Was it a special land use approval?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if it's a special land use approval and they're altering the site plan, increasing, its usage of the property, it very well, if they're doing anything that amends the site plan, they got to come back to amend their special land use. So does it involve site plan amendment?
I don't think it does. I
The
think this
actual building is not changing. The existing building they're altering the interior. They are altering the
Parking.
interior. A couple of my questions would also be, if you are also increasing the capacity of the number of people in there, what about the health department? Is the health department going to be asked to reviewing that? Because you're going to have more patrons and more people coming into that building. It's going to put more pressure on your septic system. You're not on sewer.
I guess
I believe Sue Dickinson is also, believe participating tonight. There's an increase in parking. So I think there's a chance of taking a look at this overall, because you obviously are wanting to increase the number of people coming into the property, which then puts pressure on other areas.
I'm confused by the
Yeah,
increased
it's,
people part.
Yeah.
I don't see anything in here that's about increasing people or parking. I see a change of an interior bar area that's current, that's sort of shifting 20 feet over and expanding a couple cupboards. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
kind of.
Okay, but standing in
Um,
what Tim was saying was that he wanted to have, be able to accommodate having more people come in, having, you know, the structure isn't changing, but it was to accommodate and basically inviting more people to come into by offering more liquor opportunities. Did I get that wrong?
Well, I guess I'm just a little bit confused. I mean, you know, people come to our farm and, you know, whether it's for an educational class or to, you know, grab a drink and to walk around on our nature trails, you know, I'm not, I guess I don't see the link really between renovating the interior space and then having to turn around and, you know, expand my parking area or do any, you know, serious changes to the site plan.
But
Part of the site plan had
what
a-
you're asked to do is by changing the interior is increasing basically your menu and availability of different drink options, which would then have more people come into the property is what I'm getting at. So right now you feel like you're limited because of what you can serve, you know, the products that you are serving to the customers. So if you're expanding it, that means that you're going to have more people coming in.
So I guess my question is, if every time I want to add another menu item, do I need to come into the planning commission for that?
Wait, doesn't it say right here, we're gonna change capacity from 250 to 300, a 20% increase?
On the proposal or the memorialization document?
That's the memorialization.
Yeah.
That was already
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
That was
but-
already done.
But we got this, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but we started out as something, now we're heading to something else. This whole project's been being diverted to where we can generate some money. Because it looks to me like the original process wasn't gonna cut the mustard. So somehow they're gonna have to figure out how to generate some money to keep the doors open. And I think this liquor thing, as much as we don't like the ideal of it, it's something that's gonna have to happen.
I mean,
Yeah, we just refresh everyone. I mean, yeah, you're right, Tom. It changed over the years, and the last action we took was that memorialization, which was
Mhm.
saying yes to the liquor license and the capacity change, and then having the township board decide whether they wanted to support their liquor license, which they ended up doing. My question on this one is, I have a hard time telling the applicant, you got to come in here because you're changing the bar, unless I'm missing something. That's just kind of my feeling at this point. But I mean,
Agreed.
the capacity limits aren't changing. That
Exactly.
has to be clear.
Yeah, Dave. So typically, if it's not changing the approved use and it's not changing the site plan, then they wouldn't have to come back in for special land use approval, to amend their special land use approval. They would still have to get their whatever required building permits and so forth to make the interior revisions. But I mean, I can't tell you what, you guys know what was approved, but it just depends on what was approved and if this is, some type of expansion of what was approved, or just, like you say, if it's just some interior alterations and some menu changes, or they're going to serve something different to drink or whatever that may be, that's not normally going to trigger an amendment to your site plan or amendment to your special land use. Say if you get a special land use to operate, it's going to allow you to operate that use. If the use is changing, then yes, if it's changing in the amount of people that will be using it, that's different. If it change, that's changed. So unless there's something that is actually changing the, that go back for amendment to the special land use.
Yeah, and tonight's a presentation. I didn't want to get too deep into this with them, but I mean, I just wanted the planning commission members to know what I mean, I think it is tricky. I mean, as you stated, it's like, is the use changing? Is it not changing? You know, you can say yes or no, but I think one of the ways we can handle this is we can say, you know, we hope the use isn't changing, and we'll be watching it to make sure the use doesn't change. And it is a concern of ours. And if it is simply an interior change, then that's fine. But if it starts to become, you know, party central or a bar type atmosphere, then obviously that's a change of use. And you know, I don't know how we handle that, but that's kind of, right now it's not being proposed as that way, but if it is that, then we'd have to handle it at that point, right?
Yeah, that's my concern, Dave. It's going to morph into that.
Right. So I think it's something we keep an eye on. And if we think about it and we say, no, we'd really like them to come in, then no, but at this point, that's kind of where I'm at.
So this is Carol, and I'm looking, and I'm fine with that. So as long as the planning commission is comfortable with that, and then I will just go ahead and issue a zoning compliance permit for them to go ahead and make the alterations.
Yeah, and I would just be very specific, Carol, that this is for internal alterations that don't change the use or the plans for that use as defined in the memorialization, right?
Okay, that works for me.
Yeah, and Carol, yeah, as zoning administrator, it's your call. So that's where it lies with
Yep.
you.
The most unpleasant part. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, that's usually why I go to the planning commission, because once you approve something, I don't want to be stepping on toes and saying, and overreading what you approved.
Right. Right.
Mm.
Okay.
Ask Mr. Thal just a quick question, Dave.
Yeah, before you do, Adam, can you stop your screen sharing so I can see? Because I got to move on to some public
Sorry.
comment, and I want
There
to.
you go.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
And thank you, Adam.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mike.
Robert, with all these changes that have occurred to the ag tourism, are you familiar with the ordinance at all?
No, I'd have to, I mean, I can't tell you for sure right now, because no, I'm not familiar with their approval or the ordinance provisions regulating what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm just concerned is what does this do for the next applicant that comes along, right?
Yeah. And I can look at that with Carol too.
Okay. Thank you.
We can have a session too, planning commission members, as we review that ordinance, because it has been a couple of years, and although Robin Hills is the only one we've seen, we can look at it at some point too. But I do want to get on with the agenda. So public comment, briefly open for anyone who has anything not on the agenda. So raise your hand, or Patrick has something. He's got a hand up. So I'll start with him. And if you don't know how to raise your hand in Zoom, then just physically yell out when I call the next person. So Patrick, go ahead.
Don't yell out too loud, because I'm going to think you're yelling at me. But I wasn't going to comment. But on the presentation and the discussion that just happened, I honestly feel like this is a big waste of time for the scale of what they're doing, to even ask them to do a zoning compliance permit. Why is it that somebody needs a zoning compliance permit if they're not changing anything that's relevant to the zoning designation? So that's maybe more of a question than anything else. I think we've gone way overboard with trying to micromanage something here. They were permitted to have an event facility. Whatever they're doing here certainly doesn't exceed the parameters of what they would have done with the event barn. So it should be just commonly recognized that they're well within the parameters that have been established for them. And I think we have better things to do as a township than to worry about this. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can answer that, Patrick. You know, we certainly don't want to do things we don't have to do. They do have to get a zoning compliance permit because they have to get a building permit, and that's an issue to take up with the county, right? So, but then the question is, well, if they have to change anything in the zoning, then Carol has to bring it to us, and that sort of precipitated the presentation. Wendy, your hand is up.
Yeah, it's Dave, and I haven't figured out how to change my name. from
Okay,
to
Dave.
Wendy, or Wendy to Dave. Anyway, I've been to a lot of these meetings, and it's just really, I'm kind of echoing what Patrick just said. I find it embarrassing how hard that the Planning Commission in particular makes it for businesses in town. And Adam kind of took it to an extreme by saying that every time he changes a menu, is that going to increase how popular it is? So they have to come to the Planning Commission or whatever. And Sylvan Township residents are paying for Robert Thal to sit in on this judgment and comments to the effect of something that might happen if this changed and more people came. It's all these phantom boogeymen out there that they want to stop. And it is ultimately ridiculous what is being done, mostly through the Planning Commission members who, if it's not what they want, will do anything they can to make sure that it's too hard for change to take place or anything out of the ordinary to take place. And that has to change, or Sylvan Township just fades away. That's all. It's disappointing.
Yeah. I'm not going to comment too much on that, but I explained the process before. Someone goes to get a building permit at the county, they have to get a zoning compliance permit. Then the zoning compliance officer comes to us if she has any question over whether that's a change of use. We had a nice discussion about it. That's it. Robert's actually here for another issue on the agenda. Do we have any other public comment? I'm gonna wait. I guess not seeing any hands. If Rod, if you see a hand I don't see, let me know. Otherwise, all right. We got some agenda items to get to, so we'll close public comment. Unfinished business. Well, actually, we're going to move new business up very, very quickly as we change the agenda at the beginning. So the St. Louis Center has been in their different phases of their project over the past several years. We've granted a few extensions, and I think they're getting ready to use one of those. So they wanted to update us and let us know that they're starting something. I may have that right or I may have that wrong, but I think from that organization is Father.
Renzo.
Yep, you're here.
Okay.
There you are. All right.
Good evening to everybody, and thank you to give me the opportunity to update all of you for what is happening here at the center. The facilities, the buildings we under construction last year have been completed. Some have been occupied already, some are in the process to be occupied. So the northwest corner at this point is completed. Other changes that are going on, or major things that we have been doing, we have been looking closely at what kind of services we deliver for people with disabilities. When we started the construction of the village, our intent was strongly, the intent we had was to provide services for a population which is aging, especially people with disabilities who don't have any longer family members to care for them. And this is what we are seeing these days. We have noticed also former residents, they are aging and they started to come back. The last two we admitted were former residents that were here in the 80s, and now they are on the late 40s, early 50s. Start to have additional problems, more than problems. Parents are not there to care for them anymore, so they are coming back. And so we are continuing this process, and that was the focus we had when we decided to build the village. Other things that we are seeing that are happening, especially with the services we have been provided for children. At this point, that the children that are coming to our attention are very, very involved. They pretty much need a secure environment. We are kind of a very open environment. We don't have any fence. No We don't have security around the property, and the last few months, many times we had to call the police because some of these residents were just jumping to the road. We felt it was unsafe for them, was unsafe for the community overall to have people running on the public road in that particular way. And then there were other issues too, that requirements that the state was imposing on us that were above what the field could deal with. So we decided at this point to be geared toward the street and adult population from 18 up. The youngest one is 18, and the oldest one we have is 81. So we are repurposing also those houses we had built a few years ago for children. We are moving those houses for adults. We have a very long waiting list for adults. This is a major need that we are facing these days. It was no an easy decision to make because many of these children, this is the only stable environment they ever experience in their lives. But we reached the point that we couldn't provide services to them. That is the major decision we had to make. Our children license will expire on the 20th of this coming month, and we are not going to renew the license any longer. So we are working with all the different agencies for a small transition for all the children that have been entrusted to our care, and they can be placed with other providers. And then meanwhile, we are already working out to have the existing houses, smaller houses with the individual rooms, to use those for adults who are aging. And that is still part of the original plan that we had. So we are going to spend quite some time now to redesign altogether our internal program. And once we are through that, then we will continue with the major plan that we were having to build the village. There's still a lot of work that has to be done. Many more constructions needed to come in the future. So that is our status at this point.
Thank you. That was very helpful, and the decisions you have to make are extremely tough, and we appreciate the work that you're doing.
It was no easy. It's not over yet because dealing with some of the bureaucrats at the state level has not been an easy thing, especially when they have their own personal agenda. Try to corner us all the time, so we just went in the other direction and said, well, okay, you want to go in a certain way, we go in a different way.
Right.
Shaking hand, and we are okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions from Planning Commission members, or Carol, if you have anything to bring up? I think I put Carol on mute. Let's make sure. There she comes.
Okay. So this is Carol, and I do not have anything additional to add. I know that it's been very challenging for Servants of Charity to operate St. Louis Center, and what they were originally proposed for as their village. I think they still have that mission in mind, but the Planning Commission, I know, has approved the original project, and it was, I know there's been some discussion over the fact that it was master plan for mixed use, and they were given permission to do this village concept under this as a special use under the zoning ordinance, basically as institution and educational.
Right. And again, is this a question, Carol? I mean, if any of those uses change, we don't have the memorialization in front of me or anything. Is there any change in that or things we have to do for this?
Boy, that's, after listening to what Attorney Thal just said, I'm probably going to have to take a look at that again to see if is the use changing. I would say no, because it's still residential. The fact that it was geared for children, that it's an age group that you're addressing, but still the actual use and the proposed uses of these structures remains the same. It's just gearing to a different population base. If
Right.
anybody wants to add to that or make a comment, please do.
Yeah, and the last phase that we approved, was that phase 2, right? And we extended that one?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Now, the memorialization has 1A, and I don't believe it's 2, but then we do have 2. I may have missed the memorialization of 2, but I do have that it was applied for, and I believe you had received the minutes as well for the action.
Right. Okay. Any questions for Father while we're here? Dawn, anybody? Give her a moment to get off mute. I think we're good. All right, well, we appreciate you coming in and speaking to us, and we appreciate all that you do, and the open communication you keep with us is very helpful. You're a unique destination in Sylvan Township and an important part of it. So thank you.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
Father. Thank you very much.
Well,
All
just,
right.
just as a comment, as soon as we are through with this pandemic issue, we still want to have a formal dedication of the buildings that we finished. So all of you are invited.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll keep
Thank
an
you.
eye on it. Appreciate it. And hopefully we can all do that soon. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we will move on a bit here. We've got a couple items under unfinished business to get to. The first being the preliminary site plan for the Chelsea Square complex, the 81 unit complex. Just a brief history. This is a consent judgment property. We met on this, I think we did our public hearing in February, maybe? I can't remember what date. But then we had to postpone some action on it because we were missing a couple items. And then the applicant, again, I think in March asked for some more time, and the township board was doing a review study. And I'm here to tell you, we now have all those reviews. We have the 2 items that I had in my notes that we were looking at specifically. One was the wetland redelineation. It's an easy word to say. Because it has to be done within every 3 years, and I think we were out of date. The applicant has done that. And then we had the water sewer issue, which was due to the fact that this was 81 units being added in, and that capacity, there was some question in capacity that the township, the planning commission met actually on these issues when I wasn't here last month. And in the meantime, we've gotten the review, and the review went to our water sewer head and Bob, and he issued us a note saying that he feels we do have the capacity for this, and based on that review. And so that brings us to this evening and taking this up again. I would like to get to a point of action tonight because we have postponed action after the public hearing, and I think we now have the information we need, so we have to figure out what we want to do. So I'm going to open it up first to Carol. Did I miss anything in that before I open it up to the applicant?
No, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep, okay, yep, you covered it all.
Okay. So now we open it back up to the applicant, and who is here for them? Speak up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan Leclerc calling.
There you are, Dan. Good to see you.
So I appreciate the opportunity to be back before you again. We've been before you folks back, I think, in December, January, February, April. It's been several trips to you. I believe you're correct. I think there's been a lot of discussion about this project, and the major concern, I know earlier there was traffic. That's all been resolved with the road commission and MDOT. The wetlands were a big concern last time we were before you because they were originally delineated back in 2006. We've updated the wetlands, and the plan that you folks have before you reflects the updated wetlands. In addition to that, I know the township was concerned about the pump station having capacity to service this site. Based on my review and according to the township's engineering consultant, there's plenty of capacity. So I think with that, rather than beating a drum over and over again, be happy to answer any questions for you folks, but we humbly request an approval of the plans as presented.
Yeah, as this is preliminary site, I forgot to say, this is preliminary site plan approval. Now I'll open it up to planning commission members. I also want to give the attorney Thal or I don't know if our engineer is here or Bob is here because you all have done you've done a lot of work on this the last few months. So I want everyone to be able to tell us where we're at. So I will open it up to planning commission members first. Anybody have a comment based on what you discussed at the last meeting, et cetera? Or the report, which we now have.
I do have, I don't know where you want to go first. The IMEG report or Carol's staff report. Let's start with Carol's staff report, if that's all right.
Okay.
Just a couple of things that look like they might be conditions to any preliminary approval. Specifically, I'm looking at page 5 of Carol's staff report. She actually has summarized these pretty well in her project analysis, which is on page 8. So I think we just need to make sure that we cover some of these. Specifically, we've got the issue with the sidewalks located on only one side of the street. This is part of the land development standards. Carol has quoted the section, and I think maybe Mr. Thal might be able to help us with that. I think that one of the takeaways from last month's meeting was that we should make sure that we cover all of these things when we're making these kinds of approvals, because they have a tendency sometimes to come back and give us trouble down the road. So that's one of them. Another one is making sure that we document, and I can do that, document some of these points that Carol has made in the minutes, specifically about some of the setbacks on the front setbacks. And Carol also quoted on the side setbacks, sections in the ordinance where these are not met. One of the things that may be a condition of this, again, those are the setbacks. I'm sorry, it's repeated again. So do you want to go through this page by page, or do we want to just pull all of the items that Carol has provided for us, and she very kindly put it in blue so that they stand out as things that we should make sure that we address as conditions as we are approving this preliminary site plan. In other words, as you often describe, the preliminary site plan is our opportunity to point out the things that we have concerns about, make sure that we document them, let the developer move forward with their plan. If that should be our final decision tonight, approve the preliminary site plan with the understanding that these things will be in place at the final site plan review.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm thinking you're right. Let's go through page 8 and 9 of Carol's report. The two items we'll hold for the end will be the delineation, although we can note that was done, and then the sewer. So let's go through these other items which we haven't talked about. So the sidewalk location is a big one on one side of the street. We've talked about this with the applicant before, or maybe we just talked to Dan about it on another project, but we'll have to ask again. I know the last time we talked, this is a land use development standard that wouldn't be met. And really it comes down to the planning commission, whether they want to waive that or somehow push back on it. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts among the planning commission members, or Dan, if you want to respond to the why and how of the one one side of the street sidewalk.
Sure, maybe I can give a little bit of background on this. We did look at, one of the things that we look at all the time with respect to sidewalks is the purpose and function of them. And we looked at this project. There's a couple ways that we could do it. The majority or the primary focus for sidewalks is to have them is to be able to maneuver around the property for pedestrians, bicycles, tricycles. We felt that what we have is we have a open space area kind of in the center part of the project. And we felt that putting sidewalks on both sides of the street, are people really going to use all of the sidewalks? So we manipulated this project to utilize just one side of the street for sidewalks. The one thing that maybe we probably could do is once we get our final landscape plan done, is have a sidewalk going from one of the roads into that center area. Because I think that if we're going to put sidewalks in, let's put them where they're going to be used. So many times we see sidewalks on both sides of the street because the ordinance recommends it and nobody uses them. It increases stormwater runoff. It's less green. So, that's one thing that we were looking at. It was also noted to me, I believe the township just approved a plan recently with sidewalks on one side of the street. So we're kind of just following, being consistent with other projects in the community, as well as trying to be realistic and trying to suit the function of this. And if we were closer to town, I think there would be a much greater use of the sidewalks, but we think out here everybody's going to be, and this is a rental, he is proposing a rental community. So a lot of times people here are business professionals. They come and they go, they pull in the garage and they pull out of the garage. And so that's kind of our basis behind only putting sidewalks on one side of the street.
Okay. Members of the Planning Commission, thoughts on this issue?
Dave, I'm going to go to Carol's comments here. This is a new multifamily residential project, and perhaps it really should comply with the development standards. They're written for a reason, requiring the sidewalks on both sides of the street, particularly because of the density of the units and the need for safe pedestrian movement of the tenants, both adults and for children living in this project. The other projects that we have allowed sidewalks on only one side of the street are much smaller than this one. This is 81 units. So when you consider the number of people that may be using them, and I'm also going to use a personal experience situation that I'm familiar with. I have a friend who has a condominium in Ann Arbor, and like this one, it's pretty dense housing. There are no sidewalks, and the visitor parking is some distance away from her condo unit. And so when I go to visit, I have to park in the visitor parking because they're single car garages and there isn't any room in front of her condo. I have to park some distance away, and I have to literally walk in the street to get to her condominium. In the wintertime, that's a bit unsettling, especially since there's traffic coming at me. Even though it's a condominium and it's midday, there's still traffic in the complex that make it very tricky. I think this is an unsafe situation for this density on this particular project. Those are my comments.
Gotcha. Completely understand. Mike, anything on your end?
Yeah, I can concur with Don. I think it's the density that scares me, right? So,
yeah. Okay.
So I mean, someone who spends a lot of time walking, I can appreciate not getting run over.
Yeah. Any other comments, Steve? Tom?
I sort of agree. I think we should have sidewalks on both sides. not knowing exactly what's going on. And I just think that one there in Chelsea has, that one in there by Reinhardt, I think only has sidewalks on one side. And I think we should have sidewalks on both sides for safety, and everybody wants to walk. We have walking paths all over. I just think we should have it because somebody might go in there and decide to walk around or something. I agree with Carol, or Dawn, excuse me, that we should have sidewalks on both sides.
Awesome. Yeah, very helpful.
David?
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree. I think we need sidewalks.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing pretty unanimous here, and I know, yeah, I completely understand. And I honestly, if I said, well, yeah, if I was drawing this drawing, I guess I would do it with both sides, but I see why they didn't. But on the other hand, 81 units and that many adults and children crossing around, it does make it different than the other one that we approved. And I think for that reason, I'm kind of in the same spot. So right now I say we park it on the side of conditional change, but
Dave, this is Carol. Can you hear me?
yep.
Okay, so I also want to note that I wasn't the only one that pointed this out. So Sue Dickinson did as well, and
Yeah.
that was also in her report.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that it is in her report, and yeah, because I mean, we asked her to review land development standards, and that's definitely where this runs come. The 15, your next comment, Carol, was the 15 visitor parking spaces are 3 are barrier free, and you said the width wasn't right on that.
So our ordinance is that, as I state, our ordinance requires, not the barrier free, the ordinance requires parking bays to be 10 by 20, and these do not meet our ordinance. Also, I noted, I crossed out the 4 because when I reviewed this, my glasses were not working well. It looks like from the last time this was submitted, there was 4 barrier free, and there are only 3 barrier free now. So if that's incorrect, please say so.
Actually, Carol, you are correct. There are 3 barrier-free parking spaces shown. The one thing that I'd like to probably bring to everybody's attention is that we are required 15 visitor parking spaces. Actually, we have 162 parking spaces, 2 in front of each garage, plus the 15 off-street parking and their dedicated bays, plus one side of the road will be for parking as well. The proposed interior road or driveway in here is wide enough to allow parking on one side, so we're going to do that. The one thing that we were kind of considering, I think some parts of the ordinance may apply more to a commercial development, for instance, the dumpster. So we were wondering if maybe this off-street parking, typically we don't see parking bays in a quasi-residential development, but to answer the question, if we can certainly add another off-street parking space that's a barrier-free, and we can make them 10 by 20 if that's what the Planning Commission desires.
Yeah, I mean, the 10 by 20 issue is really what's in the ordinance. I went back and looked at that section, and then the barrier free. I didn't see, Carol. Aren't they okay with the 3?
I'll defer to Sue on that. She's really the expert on there.
Is Sue on there?
Yes, I just unmuted myself. Hello.
Thanks, Sue.
Yeah, I'm sure 3 would be plenty. I don't have the chart in front of me, but you know, it certainly, if they were only required to have 15, you know, 3 is a large percentage of that. I just do want to note, I was trying to look up the road cross section to see how wide the road was, but even to comment on Dan's point about being able to park on one side of the road, there's so many driveways here that I don't really think you would be able to park along the road except in a few spaces that I'm seeing. And then the other thing is if they do put sidewalk on both sides of the street, you know, the side that doesn't have sidewalk right now, the cars visiting would be parked over the sidewalk. And I know that happens in many different situations, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. That was my next question. That's why I started into on the parking issue, because I think they are kind of interrelated. All right, so the 15, I'm glad we have the 3 being barrier free, but I do think we have to have the spaces meet the 10 by 20. That's kind of what I take out of that item for now. And then anything else on those 2 issues? Members, anybody? All right, so then we get down to issue 9. That was the street light, the photometric plan. And I remember talking to Dan about this, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, we can provide a photometric plan as part of the final site plan. What we'll do is we'll end up with probably 3 or 4, either 3 or 4 lights, pole lights in here, or we may do automatic coach lights on the front of the garages if they provide enough light to light the sidewalks and the streets.
Yeah, and I think that's, I'm getting 2 projects mixed up. I think I talked to you about the last project and that. But yeah, that's part of the final site plan, and we would want to see that, and we do want to make sure the lighting would be enough. The other issue that in Carol's report had to be with the correcting on the site plan, the zoning district, and this is where we need to update our zoning maps. So the site plan, which zoning district's on the site plan? It still says business park, right?
No, it does not. On the existing, that property is industrial consent judgment.
Right. So we're trying to.
It never was business park. I've made that comment several times. It never was business park. I don't know why it keeps continuing to stay there. It's always been industrial consent judgment.
Yeah, and the reason and I would like it to say the industrial / consent judgment, because we're going to start to, when we redo the map, the way we've been talking, we're going to delineate these consent judgments better. Dan, does that make sense to you to make that change?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. That's not a problem. So,
and then there'll be for final site plan, just so the planning commissions are realize this would be a development agreement with the board. Street names will be internal access roads, not private roads, requiring township board approval. And then obviously our legal counsel will be reviewing final site plan for compliance with the actual consent judgment. And that leads us to the sewer issue. Sewer capacity issue, where we did receive a report and we received our own sign off from our sewer water authority within the township. And actually then I think Sue took a look at the report, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Nothing glaring in there?
No, not at all. It was great.
Okay. And then I don't know, is Bob on? Did he want to say?
I'm just here if you have any questions regarding your report. It's
okay.
Pretty self.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, and we got your note. So go ahead, Mike. You had a question?
I have a question for Mr. Thal. The IMG report or IMEG, do these guys, if something goes wrong, do they have liability insurance that we could tap if we ever needed to?
Well, it depends on the contract that was entered into for the report. But, you're relying on an engineer's report. So, that's, it should be somebody that you trust, that the township hired, and you should be able to trust their report. But whether there's liability or not, that's dependent upon the contract that was entered into for the report. But, I've looked at this report also, and it is consistent with my understanding of how many gallons per day are actually associated with projects, for how many gallons per day per REU. I work with a lot of sewer and water authorities and sewer and water systems, and the 350 is much, much higher than you would normally see for gallons per day per REU. So the 250 is much, that's a good number that the engineer used. I agree with that number, and I agree with the results from his report. But again, in terms of liability for that, it's whatever the contract would provide for.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know Sandy's not here tonight, but from the township board perspective, I did hear from Kurt and a few others that they were satisfied with the report and what come back. Because I know part of this is, township board has to look at this in terms of all of the consent judgment properties and all of what might happen. And I know that's what you all talked about last time. So, so I bring it up for any comment. If not, then we can move on to the wetland delineation issue. That's an issue where we received a last minute heads up from Sue that she looked at that, and the wetlands have been redelineated without any significant impacts to the layout. That the infiltration tests were on there. And then her other comments from earlier stand. So any other questions? That did help me. That was a big issue for me because I wanted to make sure we kept the standard that these wetlands delineations needed to be updated, because we do have a lot of properties within this area that we either have consent judgments on, or people are going to come to us with some sort of plan. And I think we've got to stick hard and fast to that. So any other issues that I'm missing, Dawn, that are not in the staff report or that are not in what I just brought up?
No, I think you've covered it very well, David. Thank you. I do want to just clarify for the purpose of the minutes and for our documentation that if everyone is okay, and it sounds like we all are, including the board, is satisfied with this report, I would like to make reference in the minutes to Mr. Scull's letter of May the 18th, specifically where he says the results indicate that there is adequate sewer capacity, which it seems we all agree on, and that there are no issues with approving this Chelsea Square project as proposed in regard to water sewer. The other document that I would refer to or make reference to in the minutes, this is all part of the rationale for why we thought we could move forward with this, is the IMEG report itself, and that would be on page, these pages aren't numbered, but 1, 2, 3, page number 4. And it simply says, based on the actual flows to the pump station, capacity exists to handle an additional 57 REUs as proposed. Since the pump, and this one I would add because there was concern about pump capacity downstream, and they addressed that. Since the pump station capacity is not required to change, the flows in the downstream force mains and pump stations will not change. No further analysis is needed. No further analysis is needed or was completed on the downstream components. So I'll make that part of the official minutes if you agree.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I didn't have Mr. Scull's letter to reference the date, so I was looking for that. So yeah, that we definitely want to reference that. We definitely want to reference the report in our official minutes and any memorialization. And then I think on top of that, one of the things during all this communication that's gone back and forth the last couple of months about making sure we got this report, the township board wanted to make sure that Mr. Scull had his say as part of the way we look at this. So the next time, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Mr. Skull and say, you know, how do you feel? Do we have the capacity, and is there a report to back this up? And if not, then he goes to the board and says we need a report. So it's just a matter of making sure we have a system in place, and now that we do, let's use it. So thank you, Don, for pointing that out. Absolutely. Any other comments? So right now, in my mind, I'm looking at a conditional approval with a 10-foot by 20-foot parking space change, with the sidewalks on both sides of the street, and with ensuring that the site plans read industrial / consent judgment zoning. Those are the three that I have on my list.
They did, I'm sorry, am I?
Nope,
Yeah,
go for it.
As a condition that the photometric plan will be in place. You said that you would fix that, Mr. Leclerc. I'll just make a note of that on the minutes, and that should probably be a numbered condition. And then the other one, you mentioned the zoning part, right? You just mentioned that. That would be a condition. Am I going too fast?
No, the photometric plan, I don't know if it needs to be, because that'll be part of the final site plan.
Oh, okay, right.
So I think this just, but yes, definitely the change in the zoning on the site plans.
So we will have conditions for the sidewalk, the parking spaces, the zoning of this, and the final one is the legal counsel, making sure that we indicate that there will be a legal counsel review of the final site plan, right?
Yeah, I
So
think
that's 1, 2, 4.
one more point is page 8 of the project analysis from Carol's report. And the dumpster location is not indicated, right? Would we end up deciding on that or discussing?
I don't think they're having dumpsters. I think
We
they're
are
having
proposing roll carts,
roll
garage
carts, right?
stored roll carts.
Yep.
I believe that is noted on the site plan as well.
Yeah, I remember asking about it before too.
No, I just didn't know if we needed to document that, because since it's in the project analysis, do we have to indicate that in the notes, right?
I think I'm okay not documenting because of the dumpster, because they do indicate on the site plan that there are roll
Okay,
carts.
that's fine. Just want to make sure.
I'm good with that.
In the transition fence,
Transition fence.
number 4.
Oh, from the self-storage facility. Isn't there a berm there? Or am I wrong?
There is actually not a berm there. We walked that site. What we're requesting is that typically if we were before you putting a self-storage in next to a residential, we could understand the need for doing the buffering. We felt walking it that it probably wasn't necessary. And we would like the option to be able to do a fence if need be, but we were hoping that maybe it wouldn't have to be part of the approval in case we decide not to. There's already a fence there. And what we probably will end up doing is doing it with vegetation rather than a hard fence.
Well, that is what I was going to mention. Is there a way to do it with vegetation? Because I cannot stand hard fencing in residential, but
yeah, we would request the option, because once we get into the final engineering and final site plan, things may change. We may have to flip back and forth because of grading, utilities, things like that. So we're hoping to have the ability to change it as need be.
So could we say that we have an expectation in the final site plan that there will be consideration of some sort of transition at that point, whether it be plant or fence, and we can look at that point? Is that fine?
Yeah, and that's fine. And I think the important thing is the other thing that we're looking at is that only a portion of our common property line has the actual buildings. In other areas, it's kind of in the farther in the rear yard, the storage units are. So, that's why I think we're kind of asking for our own discretion. My client is a developer. He's renting these out, and he wants to make sure his His residents are happy with everything, so we're kind of looking at it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, sounds good. It's up to you, Mike. Do you want to make that conditional, or do you want to just look for it in the final site plan?
As long as it's noted, I think it's fine if it's in the
Okay.
final, right?
We'll note it in the minutes and make sure we look at it as part of the final. And obviously Carol has it in her report, so she will again examine it in the final. All right. I think we're getting close to an action here. So we've got our conditions. Any other further comments, questions, concerns from folks we haven't heard from? Steve, Tom, Leah?
I'm good with all the changes.
All right. Okay, silence is golden. All right, so we need to put together a motion to approve the preliminary site plan for the Chelsea Square 81 unit apartment complex consent judgment property. Say that 10 times real fast. With the following conditions: that sidewalks be added to both sides of the street as delineated in our land development standards, that the guest parking spaces are 10 foot by 20 foot as required by ordinance, and that the site plan documents note this as an industrial consent judgment zoning property. Am I missing anything? That's what I got. Does that make sense, Dawn? I'm going to give you time. Well, you might be muted, Dawn. Hang on.
I mute that because when I least expect it, the dog's gonna bark.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got the sidewalks, the guest parking, the zoning, and then the only other one to add would be the legal review.
Yeah, the two
Right?
will be legal. That'll be on final site plan. But yeah, we can note it. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I got. That's the motion.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So you've got a motion. I'm ready to record.
All right, I made the motion. So I move to approve the preliminary site plan, Chelsea Square 81 unit apartment complex consent judgment property with the following conditions: that the sidewalks adhere to our land development standards by being placed on both sides of the street, that the guest parking spaces be 10 foot by 20 foot as required by ordinance, and that the site plan documents change the zoning to industrial consent judgment. And I need a second.
Second.
I'll second.
Second by Steve, got in there first. And I'll give you a minute, Tom, when you're ready, say ready.
I'm good. Yep, ready.
All right, so now we will vote with a roll call vote on the motion before us. Tom,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Leah,
Yes.
chairman votes yes. Mike,
Yes.
unanimously approved. Well,
Thank you very much.
that only took 6 months. Come on, Dan.
Well worth it. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you
right.
for all your consideration.
Thanks, Dan. We'll see you on final. All right, moving on to, this is another one where I'll set the stage. We had a lively discussion for a rezoning request from ag to industrial zoning for a property on Pierce Road, 480 Pierce Road, 32.5 acres. We had that in March. We had a public hearing. We closed the public hearing. We got to action and then realized that the applicant wanted to consider some different options. They've spent the last few months doing that. They've come to us and said, well, first they asked that we postpone this again, but they also have asked that they can come back and change this to a conditional request. If you remember, we had some discussion with the attorney who was present about what that might look like in terms of putting a conditional rezoning request together. Again, I'll reiterate, this is just the rezoning request part. Then there's a site plan part if they were to move forward. And in that part, we go through all the mechanisms that you just saw twice, one for preliminary and one for final. But in the rezoning piece, I've got a question right off the bat for Attorney Thal, and that is, the applicant seems to be looking at putting this to a conditional. My assumption is that would mean that this gets rescinded and then there has to be a new public hearing on a conditional rezoning request. Am I right?
So, what you can do, if they want to do a conditional rezoning, what they can do, it will need another public hearing, but I don't think you got to go backwards to start over. Basically, they can come back to you and propose conditions for the rezoning. It's not anything that we don't control the conditions. They control what conditions they want to propose. And that would be called a conditional rezoning, because obviously it was probably explained to you last time. And as you know, anytime you rezone property, if you just rezone it, any permitted use in that zoning district can be engaged in. So they can give you the best plan they could possibly do for rezoning. They could have the property rezoned, turn around, sell the property, and it could be used for some other use in that zoning district. So conditional rezoning is really a good solution when there's issues, potential issues with rezoning to any use in a certain zoning district. Because what it does is it allows that developer or owner to bind themselves into what projects. I mean, it can be very specific. It can be more general as to just what uses will be allowed. I've seen it down to the site plan that they were proposing. Recognizing that it still has to go, even with conditional rezoning, it still has to go through site plan review and stuff if the rezoning is approved. It still has to go through your land use process. So it's up to them what conditions they want to propose, but what would happen is they could come back in, propose conditional rezoning of the property, and then we would set that for another public hearing. So obviously the public has a chance to see what those conditions are and to then have a public hearing for comments on the conditional rezoning. So it's really, and I wasn't at the last meeting when it was considered the rezoning originally, but if it's a contentious matter and people are concerned about what's going on in the property, conditional rezoning is really a good solution, at least to see something more concrete as to what's being proposed than just generally open up to anything within the district. But I don't think they have to go back and withdraw and start over a new application. I think they can come back in, they can propose the conditions to the rezoning, and then we set a public hearing on those conditions. So everybody still is going to have their say again on whatever those conditions are.
All right, that's helpful. Because I was afraid that we'd have to completely rescind this or take some action to rescind it, not knowing whether the applicant is ready to go back to a conditional or what. It sounds like they're still in sort of a planning phase. So I want to make sure whatever action we do or don't take was the right one. So that makes sense. Okay. So we could literally just postpone it and then they could come back with whatever they want to come back with conditionally. And at that point, we would just have to have a new public hearing, but we wouldn't have to, they wouldn't have to pay all their fees and redo everything, right?
We may still request that they pay the fees for the public hearing.
Right, okay.
Because it's got to be noticed. You know, that's, I think, a fair way to approach that. But for now, you know, the board could, you know, accept their request to postpone the matter, and postpone it to the next meeting and then see where you're at the next meeting.
Carol, I mean, you were part of the communication with the applicant. Am I missing anything or is that where we're at?
You got it right on. I misunderstood when they said that they did not want it on the agenda, which I took that to, I misunderstood that to be withdrawing. And then we received communication today, they want it to be tabled. So again, I did not understand their request, and it was my understanding they had to withdraw. So I appreciate the clarification. And I don't know if they're on this meeting. I invited them to participate tonight so we could get some clarification.
I think Charlie's on, maybe. And I don't know, I mean, yet, obviously,
Alan Green is here to speak for the applicant.
okay, hey. How are you?
Sure. Good evening, commissioners. My name's Alan Green. I'm counsel to the applicant, and I'm fairly new in the process, and Rob has laid it out pretty clearly. The conditional rezoning is a great tool, at least an opportunity that we've been using a lot since it was introduced into legislation. It's probably one of the newest zoning tools we have. And the applicant wasn't very experienced with that, so that's why I'm involved, because I'm working with them. So what we do in a conditional rezoning is we heard the public input, we heard input from the Planning Commission, we know your concerns. So what we're trying to do is address those concerns through offering certain conditions, and that's what we're working on now. Obviously, you know, you don't have to accept them or anything like that, and it's usually a give and take process too. I mean, even if we offer conditions, you know, they're discussed among the Planning Commission and the public, and sometimes they get tweaked as well. We don't know exactly what's in everybody's mind, but that's the process we're looking to do, and have no objection, and understand there will be a new public hearing because it's going to be different in the sense it's still the same rezoning request, it's to the same zoning classification, but the conditions could make it drastically different. And we've heard what your concerns are, and we want to address them. It's just, we haven't had enough time to really put it all together and get it to you. And that's all we're asking for right now.
Okay, and just one other quick question is, do you have a timeline in mind? Is this something you might want to postpone till next month, or is it a couple months?
Probably another 30 days, you know, next month, but probably not sooner than 30 days, because you're going to want to notice it up for a public hearing again, which is a longer lead time, and you'll probably give the request to your consultants, of course, because you're going to want input on that. So we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to consider it properly.
Okay, good. That you made my point for me. Yeah, I mean, we just want to make sure we have time to review and do all our process. So
right.
Okay. I have an understanding of that. I think, did Carol want to say something, or did I miss?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Planning Commission members, does this all seem, are you getting this, or you have any questions?
I'm fine with it, Dave.
Same here.
I'm fine with it as well, and I appreciate the review of what this is. I think, I'm not sure when we discussed this, but anyway, thank you for the review.
Yeah, and it's confusing, and as a member of the public, it's even more confusing. And since it is a contentious issue, I completely empathize. So I'm trying to, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I want everyone to understand as many times as we can talk about this, the better. So basically, we look forward to the applicant coming back with conditions or whatever they want to come back with in those terms, and then we'll look at it with fresh eyes, and that's pretty much all we can do. With that, I think I just need a motion to postpone this once again.
So move.
And that's moved by Tom, seconded by myself. And Don, you got that?
You're on mute.
Oh,
Yep, excuse me. So we are making a motion to postpone this until the applicant returns.
Either that, or we can say to the next meeting.
So Dave, and the deadline for the next meeting is already passed. So this is most likely going to be the July meeting.
Okay. And Robert, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna, and that's fine. You know, if the deadline's passed, then it would be, that would be the first time that you could set it for a public hearing would be July. I mean, you can certainly, at your next meeting, if you have it, you could then set it for a public hearing at your next meeting.
Okay.
That would work.
We will
I'm
post-
sorry, I didn't catch that, Rob.
So I was just saying, postpone it to your next meeting, and then you would, if you have the plans, fine, you would probably then just set it for public hearing at the next meeting. So
Yeah.
I think it's fine just to postpone it to the next meeting. You can always postpone it further if they need to postpone it further.
Right. From an action point of view, and as a chair, I just prefer to postpone it to the next meeting because then we could say, okay, set a public hearing date. We could set it at that time. So for the motion, I would just say post to the next planning commission meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments on the motion? Hearing none. We will vote. Mr. Barris,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Leah.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. And we have Mike.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to mute some things for that echo. Okay, so motion is adopted unanimously, and we will see the applicant hopefully in the future or whenever they're ready to come back for that next discussion. And I
Thank you.
thank you all for that. And I think now under communication, we have actually a new communication that came in from Grass Lake, right? Might not even be on here. Just letting us know, Grass Lake Charter Township notice of intent to prepare a master plan, just so you all know you received that and that this is their first notice of intent. The other communication is the zoning map ratification for that discussion we had in, was it March? Can't remember when we did that. For those items that were previously zoned business park and were identified as consent judgment parcels, which was part of our discussion tonight. So we do need to set a public hearing for that. But before we do that, Carol, I always like to ask what else we have on our plate. Obviously, this road thing may come back at some point. Anything else in the back burner?
There is a project that is out there that is not ripe yet. They're perfecting it a little bit, and I will tell you a little bit about it because our ordinances are basically all or nothing. It's we don't have really provisions for an operations as what they're proposing. They want to have a flower farm where people can come in and pick flowers, and it's going to be kind of a self-pick operation, and the number of parking spaces. And I explained to the property owner that I hope they become wildly successful, and in doing so, they would need more than 4 parking spaces, because at 5 parking spaces, it triggers site plan review. And so they would then have to come back. So I explained to them the advantages. It would be a special use under agriculture, and in doing so, it would be a site plan review as well. So to do it all at one time, even though they said, well, we don't think that we're going to have any more than 4 cars, unfortunately, it's also going to require engineering review to make sure that there's, adequate runoff. It's going to be seasonal. And again, like I say, our ordinances are all or nothing. It's you're either full commercial or these smaller operations. We really don't have our ordinances to address something like this, but they're really not ready to come in for the June meeting. So they would be coming in at the July meeting. That's why I think that I would have to work with Attorney Thal on this, because he's going to be having to review getting our zoning map ready and then have the ordinances prepared, because it's really a matter of correction. So, so what you really were asking is what's on the agenda. That would be it, zoning map.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
yep, zoning map for June, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's nothing else right now.
Okay. And on your other point about, and I watched some of the emails go back and forth on that, and it actually gets to the point of a member of the public made earlier tonight during public comment, where I think, you know, their intent is right. Where they're facing their displeasure probably isn't right. This committee is not necessarily where that should lie. I think there is some, and I don't know how to do this, but when we see these small farm operations pop up with, you know, wanting to sell some of their product at the farm, you know, as our ordinance, do we need to look at our ordinance and say, we have to come up with a better way than this? Because as I was reading the communications going back and forth, I thought, boy, if I was the applicant, I'd be really frustrated, you know?
I totally agree. I completely agree. And maybe right to farm is the way to go. And that's something that I maybe need to look into a little bit differently for them. But the way our ordinance is structured, that you're having people come to your property and you're conducting business, and we don't address really farm markets that way. And we've had farm markets and we've asked them to comply with site plan, and it's a bit confusing. And it's like I say, our ordinance is kind of all or nothing.
Yeah, maybe that's something, I don't want to spend any more time, but just something to look at in the future, maybe for Attorney Thal or someone else, just to say, how do others address this in communities with farms where they want to encourage that type of activity, but not step over the line into, you know, having to pay enormous amounts in site plan review. And I just don't know how to balance that.
And they're seasonal.
Yeah, they're seasonal. Yeah. And we've had this issue in the past, and unfortunately, sometimes in the past it was, well, we'll just kind of ignore it, right? And then when there's a problem, right? So
it's when it becomes a problem. And it actually, as I said, it's wonderful. And then when it gets wildly successful, then everybody, you know, people start complaining, you know, and that's when, well, didn't the planning commission look at it? Yeah, that's when it always comes back to bite us.
Yeah.
So Dave, maybe when
maybe
when we look at ag tourism again, we can include this scope in it, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably where it lies. We have to figure out what can we do legally and what have other townships done. And, you know, maybe it is, you know, is it 5 parking spaces triggers it, or is it something else? Or is there a different way we can look at each one of these? Because we've run into this past with, you know, hay rides and mazes, corn mazes, and different things people have to do to subsidize that farm. And it sometimes is tough to do. So,
yep.
All right. It's getting late. I just want to make sure that's on our radar. And then any other comments, questions, concerns?
So are we going to set the public hearing for the zoning map then for?
Yeah, so it sounds like we'll do that, the zoning map in June, if we have time to do that, Carol.
I think that's the only, from what I can tell, that's the only thing that's on the agenda. And then I will have to work with Attorney Thal on that to make sure that we can get it done. It's kind of cramming things to get it done. Everything on our end is done, but it would be handing it off to him to see, you know, what he needs to do is going to be the bigger issue, and hitting our mark for public hearing for publication. That's the biggest issue, is the publications.
Okay. You're muted if you want to save yourself. There you are.
Okay, well, I apparently was muted and unmuted. Anyway,
no,
I said...
No, not you, Carol. Robert was muted.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think because of publication deadlines and so forth for getting out notice for rezoning and the number of parcels and different aspects of doing this, I'd prefer that it be set in July than June. I think we'll need that time.
Yeah, as Carol was explaining process, I was thinking there's no way we're gonna get this in June. So
It would be tight,
yeah.
but then that means that you'll have a rezoning and perhaps a conditional rezoning, and you might have the final site. You'd have the conditional rezoning. You're likely to have the final site plan for Chelsea Square. Then you're going to have the Hoppy Road Flower Farm and the zoning map. So I'm thinking that's not going to. That'd be 4 major projects for July.
Yeah, I would put this map last on that list, and so if that needs to push to August, I'm fine with that.
Okay, but as long as I know that I can get this stuff to Mr. Thal, and then we'll get this moving along.
Sounds good. Any other questions, comments? Steve's ready to take a nap. I see him, he's fading, so we're gonna thumbs up.
So may I ask?
All right.
So may I ask, since there is nothing on the agenda, is there anything the board wants, or the planning commission wants to address for June? Because otherwise there is no business for June.
I am all for taking the month off, saving the taxpayer dollars, and because I mean we've been meeting every month, so I'm all for. If we don't have anything, let's not make it, right?
It's up to you. It's up to the planning commission.
I'm okay.
Members, what do you think?
I'm okay with that, except that sometimes this is a valuable moment in time, like the last one when we had a work session that we were able to.
Yeah, and I understand that. I'm just trying to balance it out because now we, it costs to have the meetings, and especially the work session, we got to bring in other advisors. So I'm inclined at this point to not do it, but if we come up with a reason we need to do it, we'll make that happen if we can do it in time.
Yeah, and I will talk to the board about it because now that I will tell you the stipends have now increased. So budgetarily, I would have to talk to the planning or with the township board as well, because there's nobody paying for this meeting.
Yeah, I would agree. That's kind of what I was getting at. All right. Thank you all. And I am going to make a motion to adjourn if I don't hear any other questions, comments, concerns. Going once. Going once. So moved and seconded by Steve.
Sure.
All right. We will make to adjourn, and now we shall roll call vote. Tom?
Yes. Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
Yes.
Mike? And we are good to go. Thank you all. Appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see each other, I don't know, maybe in person.
Good night, all.
Night.
Hey.